I was with Frank for 7 years, then Linda came back. When the earthquake happened, the lamp fell, and he saved her without hesitation. I got knocked out and lost my memory. When I woke up, I asked, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm your brother." I fell for his buddy and told him, "Since you're my brother, you have to help me get Daniel." He thought I was playing hard to get and agreed. Until the day I was about to get married. He stormed into the wedding like a mad dog. I said, "Bro, you here for my wedding?" With sadness all over him, he painfully closed his eyes. "Don't call me brother. I'm not your brother. Adeline, you're mine. You can't marry someone else." Frank bailed on his promise to go with me to the award ceremony. I was pretty bummed, but then he called, telling me to come to a party. I thought it was my celebration because tonight, I finally won the Best Actress award I'd been longing for. When I got there, I realized the party wasn't about me. It was a welcome back party for Linda. She was the first to come up to me, hugging me, "Adeline, long time no see." I nodded politely, pushed her away, and looked at him sitting on the couch, asking, "So, why did you stand me up today?" His hand holding the cigarette paused, then he casually put it out, "Linda hasn't been back in 7 years. Just picked her up, isn't that awards show annual?" Turns out he stood me up to pick up Linda at the airport. Frustration, bitterness, and jealousy brewed inside my chest. Sure, the awards are annual, but I waited 7 years to get this trophy. I wanted to share the joy with him first, but when I held the trophy, among the noisy guests, I looked for him but he was nowhere to be found. I was so disappointed. He didn't care at all. Am I always less important than Linda in his heart? Even though I was the one who stayed by his side these 7 years. Linda raised her glass to me. "Let me apologize on Frank's behalf. It's due to me that he stood you up, so I'll drink this to make amends." I saw the pride, satisfaction, and victorious gleam in her eyes. I didn't take the drink, just smirked. "He's my boyfriend. What makes you think you can apologize for him?" Linda's hand, holding the glass, hesitated. Then he stepped in for her. "Linda, just ignore her." "Adeline, stop it. Why are you making a fuss over something so small?" I turned to leave. Linda looked all pitiful. "Adeline's upset. You should go after her." "I'm fine with a little grievance, don't let this cause a rift between you two." His buddy got annoyed. "Talk to her properly. When didn't she compromise for you? This time, it really is your fault." Frank put out his cigarette with a disdainful look. "If you have the guts, never appear before me again. I don't know who it is, always following around like a dog, never leaving." I sped up leaving. He's right, I've always been the one compromising. He'd say something nice, and I'd soften. But not this time. From that day, Frank and I entered a cold war, and I filled my life with work. But the news about him and Linda still reached me. That night at the welcome party, he spent $1 million to place ads on high-rise buildings all over the city, saying, "Linda, welcome back." He got Linda a role with a famous director, a role that was very likely to be mine. We were almost signing, and a day before, they called saying they found someone more suitable. Turns out, more suitable was Linda. She didn't study acting, she studied piano. Yet she wanted to become an actress after returning. I had scraped through the industry for 8 years just to qualify for such roles. She took my place with just a word from him. I thought at this stage, I wouldn't lose roles like in the early years. Never thought it would be my boyfriend of 7 years delivering the blow. It hurt so bad I could hardly breathe. My chest really hurts. He should know that acting is the only thing I love besides him. I've poured so much effort into it. But he doesn't care. Or perhaps, because it's Linda, he can hurt me without restraint. My agent saw the news and asked, "What's going on? Isn't Frank your boyfriend? How come he's stealing your role for someone else? Did you guys have a fight?" I stared at the scrolling Linda, welcome back message outside the building. It stung my eyes to the point of tears. She's back, and he's so happy he wants the world to know. I took out my phone and messaged him, "Are we broken up? I'm just tired after all these years." I never thought I'd be the first to say those words. But maybe it's time to end this 7-year relationship that's grown cold. He didn't reply. I laughed bitterly. Maybe we are breaking up. My agent patted my back to comfort me. "You're too rigid. When things were good between you two, I told you to demand resources, but you wouldn't listen. Now look, Linda got a famous director's movie as soon as she arrived. Forget it. If it's over, it's over. With your looks, you can easily find someone better. There's a party tonight, you might meet someone suitable." The party. When Frank showed up with Linda, many eyes fell on me, waiting to see drama. After all, my relationship with Frank was public. Usually, he'd bring me to events like this. Linda stopped in front of me. "Adeline, you look beautiful tonight. A lot of people are looking." Frank's eyes darkened, scanning around. He scoffed, "Not as beautiful as you." I didn't bother with their show of affection and walked away from them. The party was filled with important people, including famous directors and producers. I want to swap contact info with a few famous directors in the circle, hoping they'll reach out if there's a fitting role for me in the future. When I saw Director Chin, I thought I'd give it a shot. I really love this getting back together drama, and there are still some roles unfilled. I approached him and started chatting, but Frank interrupted. "Don't bother, Linda doesn't like having acquaintances in the cast. You won't get a chance." She doesn't like acquaintances? She doesn't mingle in the industry. Isn't this clearly targeting me? I grabbed my drink and took a big gulp, trying hard to suppress the resentment inside and the urge to slap him. Wrong time and place for that. I turned to leave, but Frank stopped me. "Wait, if you see Linda, be nice. She feels hurt because you've ignored her." I suppressed the sting in my eyes and said coldly, "Let go. I have no duty to care about her feelings." He insistently held onto my hand, looking displeased. Linda soon arrived, scolding him, "Went to the bathroom and you're already bullying Adeline." Suddenly, the ground started shaking violently. Someone shouted, "Earthquake." And guests began to run off in all directions. The overhead lights swayed, and just as one was about to fall, the hand on my wrist loosened. Frank didn't hesitate to roll away with Linda, leaving me. The chandelier landed on my head, and blood stained my vision red. In life or death moments, instincts are our truest actions. He didn't even hesitate in choosing between saving me and her, even as he held my hand. It really hurts, the pain in my heart much worse than the headache. The severe headache made me pass out. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital. Opening my eyes, there was a guy in a white shirt, with brown eyes and black hair. He was really handsome, like a high-class ragdoll cat, legs crossed, reading a book. Hearing my stirrings, he looked over. His charming eyes made my heart race. I blurted out, "Hey handsome, can I get your contact info?" He laughed, looking even better, making my heart race faster. "Adeline, come on, we already have each other's info." "Wait, Adeline, is that my name?" My mind was blank except for his pretty face. He looked a bit worried and got up quickly. "Stay put. I'll get the doctor." After he left, another man came in with a glass of water. He was also handsome but with a different style, sharp suit, intense face, slightly brooding. His gaze made me uncomfortable. I couldn't believe I had so many attractive people around me. His right hand was bandaged. Setting the water down, he looked at me, saying flatly, "Awake?" I looked at Frank, confused. "Who are you?" He smirked, and I thought it looked kind of mocking. "Playing the amnesia card now? Don't think this will get you back in my life. Are we close?" "I honestly don't remember much, except my name is Adeline." He leaned closer, studying me. "You wanna act? I'll go along." He muttered something I couldn't catch. "What?" "Seriously," he said, "I'm your brother." The handsome man returned with a doctor. Frank turned to leave. Frank, make sure to take good care of Adeline. Stop running to other rooms. Linda's wound is almost healed. Frank retorted impatiently, then you take care of her. Aren't you the one who enjoys being in her room? Before leaving, he gave me one last look. Good, he's gone, now I can get to know the handsome guy better. Seeing my eager look, Frank frowned and left. For some reason, his presence was really oppressive. Could it be some kind of bloodline suppression? The doctor checked me over and said aside from a dozen stitches in my head and some scrapes, I was fine. Once the stitches are out, I can go. There's no bruising in my head, but for amnesia, there's no specific treatment. Just stay here another day for observation. They suggested taking me to familiar places to jog my memory. Hey handsome, what's your name? You said we have each other's info, let me check. Daniel. My old phone was broken, but the new phone did have contact info for Daniel. Oddly, Frank's was pinned at the top. Guess we were really close siblings. Swapped them right away. Daniel stayed with me all afternoon. My mind was still foggy. I wanted to ask about his interests but dozed off. When I woke up again, Daniel had left, and Frank was there. I showed obvious disappointment. I should have stayed awake to win over my crush. Frank frowned at me, speaking in a low tone, why the face? Are you that let down seeing me? Bro, you and Daniel must be brothers, right? He paused, looking puzzled. What did you call me? You said you're my brother. If you're my brother, you gotta help me win Daniel over. My happiness depends on you. He grabbed a cigarette, looking stressed, probably wanting to smoke. We're in a hospital, though, so he just sniffed it instead. His voice was low, maybe because he couldn't smoke, which didn't help his mood. Stop fooling around, you might get in trouble. Daniel isn't your type. He is. He totally is. I'm in love at first sight. I like tall, handsome guys who have a warm, good-looking smile with dimples. He checks all the boxes. He let out a weird chuckle, then stubbed out his cigarette, getting tobacco all over his hand, and tossed it in the trash. Alright, I'll help you. We got the discharge papers done, and Frank let Daniel drive me home. He had to take another girl named Linda to a movie set. I walked over to Frank. Linda looked at me apologetically, Adeline, I'm really sorry. Frank has to take me to the set. It's my first time acting, and I'm super nervous. I shrugged it off, no worries, he's happy to do it. Looked like Frank wanted to date her, not my problem. Then I turned to Frank and said cheerfully and sincerely, thanks a lot for this. You're so good at setting up alone time for me and him. He looked conflicted, gritted his teeth, and hissed, you're welcome. Right as I was getting into the car, a bunch of reporters surrounded us. I already knew I was in the entertainment industry before, and I was doing pretty well. But my agent told me to take a break from all engagements and not to work until I'm back in shape. The microphones almost poked into my mouth. How do you feel about Frank saving Linda first during the earthquake? Are Frank and Linda dating? How long? Do you know? I didn't get why the media was so excited. And Frank, why was he staring at me so intensely with a look I couldn't figure out? It freaked me out. Even if I were his sister, I wouldn't expect him to save me first. At most, it's just a bit unfair. Is he worried I might badmouth him in front of his crush and make him look bad? Who he saves is his business. Whether they're dating or not should be asked to them, not me. It's none of my business. Frank gritted his teeth after hearing this and silently mouthed, way to go, Adeline. If you're gonna compliment me, just do it right. No need to look like you're about to hit me. He slammed the car door shut as he left with Linda. Meanwhile, I was stuck, trying to edge my way through to get to Daniel's car. Is this Daniel's car? Is Adeline leaving with Daniel? I'm just picking her up from the hospital, said Daniel, getting close to me so I wouldn't get pushed over by the media. Sticking around the hospital would disrupt other patients. I'm sure you guys aren't that inconsiderate. 2 lines and everyone backed off. Moral high ground suits you, Daniel. You sure know how to play people. Love him even more for it. Later, when I pulled Daniel into a duo game call, Frank came back. Daniel, I'll play as it, you pick it. Okay. I was grinning the whole time, trailing him around. If anyone killed me, I'd complain, and he'd chase them down all game. Daniel, you're so good at this game. Can you play with me more often? I want to reach the top rank. Just call me anytime. Then a shadow cast over me. I looked up to see Frank standing in front of me. He looked like he could freeze someone with his stare. Honestly, this guy never has a pleasant expression. Such a drag. Stop playing, I haven't eaten. I replied dismissively, it's almost 7:30. If you haven't eaten, I saw some instant noodles in the cabinet. Go make one. I don't eat instant noodles. Then order takeout. He snatched my phone away, gripping my shoulder, pinning me to the sofa. You never used to let me eat instant noodles, you said they're unhealthy. You wouldn't let me eat takeout either, and you'd go out of your way to make what I loved. I was basically like a mom to you. I watched my game character fall and about to die. I quickly pushed Frank away and grabbed my phone. Then stay hungry. Once the game was done, Daniel said he had some stuff to handle, so we took a pause. I noticed Frank clutching his stomach, leaning against the sofa, eyes glaring at me fiercely but mixed with a hint of grievance. Like an abused pup with its ferocity drained. Dude, really? A grown man? Complaining over not having food. He's totally different from usual. But that's not on me. He won't starve. Once he's hungrier, he'll realize instant noodles might not be nutritious, but they fill you up. I got up to take a shower and head to bed. Adeline, my stomach hurts. Behind me came his whiny voice. Then call someone to fetch you some medicine. I'm sleepy, and I have dinner plans with Daniel tomorrow. Midway, I looked back at him, and his eyes lit up. I told him, thanks for letting me know he loves gaming. Could you also let me know what he likes to eat? He trembled slightly on the sofa, lowered his eyes, and said, I don't know, in a hoarse voice. All right, I'll ask him myself. Maybe it'll help us get closer. He seemed in pain, curling into himself, knuckles turning white gripping the sofa. For dinner, we chose a private place. Ran into Frank and Linda at the same restaurant. Linda insisted we all sit together, saying it'd be lively, and Frank didn't object. She pulled me into the private room and then asked with concern, Adeline, will the injury leave a scar? I heard stitches don't grow hair over them. I immediately returned the concern. My hair's thick enough to miss a patch, but sis, you should be careful. I noticed, your middle parting looks almost finger wide, stay calm, and don't lose more hair. Hearing me, Daniel reassured, don't worry about scars. There's plenty of ways to remove them now. Meanwhile, Frank sat silently. The waitress came with an iPad for us to order. I asked Daniel, what do you like to eat? Fish, no organs, I like spicy stuff, but other than that, I'm not picky. Let's order the special squirrel fish from this place, and how about some chopped chili fish head? You call the shots, I'll pick up the tab. That won't do. I said I'm treating you. Alright, next time it's my treat. I ordered a few more of my favorites and handed the iPad to Linda. She was browsing and chatting. Adeline, you and Daniel are getting along well, right, Frank? Frank didn't say a word. I chimed in, yeah, it's like we hit it off instantly. Maybe it's like that fledgling imprinting thing. You know, you rely on the first person you see. Daniel seemed a bit annoyed. Are you saying you see me as your mom? No way, you're a guy. Better be. Frank pulled out a chair with an ear-piercing scrape. I'm stepping out for a smoke. Daniel said he was going too. After sitting for a bit, I felt like Linda and I didn't have much in common to chat about, so I got up to hide out in the bathroom for a while. At the corner, I spotted Daniel leaning against the hallway puffing on a cigarette. First time I'd seen him smoke, it was kinda sexy. He spoke up. Frank, you and Adeline are broken up now, right? Frank stayed quiet, the cigarette almost burned out. When it reached his fingers, he finally responded. What do you mean by that? Just need a straight answer. If you're done, I'm gonna pursue her. Frank stubbed out his cigarette with his left hand and tossed it into the trash can nearby with a cold snicker, looking indifferent. If you're not put off by my leftovers, go ahead. Daniel swung a punch to his gut. You're out of line to insult a girl you dated for 7 years who cared so much for you. Frank took a moment to recover before standing up, raised his fist ready to hit back. Who do you think you are to hit me? But Daniel casually grabbed his hand. Let's not make a scene. We still have dinner. If word gets out, it'll look worse. Since you admitted breaking up with her, I'll make sure she moves out and stays away from you. With that, Daniel flicked away Frank's hand, took the last drag of his cigarette, and walked back inside. I was stunned by 2 bombshells, dazed as I went into the restroom. Frank wasn't my brother, he was my ex. And Daniel wanted to pursue me? High-level hunters often appear as prey. He's a smooth operator. Frank claiming to be my brother was likely to stop me from clinging on, not wanting to break up and messing with his pursuit of Linda. No wonder I always felt a pang around him. No wonder the media was so eager to ask about their relationship. There I was, clueless. Frank's contact always pinned at the top. I must have really cared about news about him. Everything in the villa was in pairs, looking like matching couple sets, which they actually were. Now, it all clicked. I splashed my face with water, trying to look calm before heading back to the room. They were all sitting there quietly. Except, Frank wasn't eating much. After eating, as he got up, he clutched his stomach and knelt down. His stomach issues must have worsened. Linda frantically tried to help, calling his name. I said, call an ambulance. Linda did just that. I took Daniel's hand to leave, but Frank grabbed my left hand. I turned to see him on one knee, face pale as a sheet, trembling in pain. Won't you come with me to the hospital? Bro, nah. You've got Linda with you. I won't be much help. Daniel and I are going to catch a movie soon. He was taken aback, and I shook off his hand. I heard him mutter, you used to be the most worried when I was sick. Now you won't even look. Too bad it was in the past. Now, I'd forgotten. No matter his pain, I remained indifferent, like an outsider. After the movie, we were strolling, and just when Daniel tried to hold my hand, his phone rang. It was Frank, repeatedly calling. I answered, heard him weakly say, I'm having a stomach bleed. A bit annoyed, I asked, anything else? Interrupting my romantic progress. He was silent for a while. Aren't you coming to see me? No need. I'm not a doctor or medicine. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. He breathed heavily, agitatedly yelled, Adeline, don't you dare contact me again. I heard a crash from his end. Linda's voice was frantic. Frank, you're on a drip. How could you kick it over like that? The blood's all out, nurse. I hung up and felt a brief headache. Fuzzy memories flashed by, like I was sick and on a drip, desperately calling someone. They picked up, saying, busy, don't bother me unless it's important. I had tentatively asked, I'm sick, head spinning. Can you come see me? They showed no concern, you're sick, see a doctor. Don't bug me, I'm racing. Holding the phone, tears fell from my eyes. Thinking of this, I felt wetness on my cheeks. Why were you crying? Daniel asked, looking worried as he reached to wipe my face. I just said, headache. I'll get you to a hospital. No need, it'll pass. He offered to rub my head to ease it. Once I said I felt better, he drove me back to the villa. He said, though it feels a bit opportunistic now, since you've got no memory and seem to naturally rely on me, I want us to be more. I tried ages ago but I want to try again. Can I? I told him he'd tried before, and I actually turned him down. Must have been blind. Daniel said it was when we first met in college, when I was feeding stray cats. Later, I stopped someone from hurting cats but injured my hand saving a calico cat. I was comforting it when he saw me being taken by the cops, muddy school uniform, torn sleeve, scratches on my face from the abuser's nails. The way I described it, it really wasn't all that attractive. I said he admired heroism. He said no, he just wanted to protect me and take care of me. He even found my battle-scarred look quite appealing. Then, he couldn't help but watch me, noticing I was mostly quiet and gentle. He couldn't picture someone like me rushing to fight a guy with a knife who abused cats. Later, he went after me. But I was distant. When friends would try to tease us at gatherings, I'd pull him aside and firmly tell him to stop wasting time. I told him we had no chance since I liked someone else. Back then, he asked what if he had met me first, would he have had a chance? I just said I don't do hypothetical answers. There's no what if in the world. Now, this seems like a chance to start over, a gift from above. I'm hesitating. I am happy. I do like him. But is this just dependence after waking up? And my memory, is it a ticking time bomb? If it returns, will I hurt him again? I told him my concerns. He said even if he could only have a romantic memory with me, it's fine. He's dreamed of being with me. Even if we break up after I remember, he won't blame me. After saying that, he was so nervous, he couldn't even look at me, just hung his head, gripping his hands. Seeing him like that, I felt a twinge of pity and agreed. Daniel, hearing my okay, looked up, his eyes crinkling like crescent moons, joyfully wrapping me in an embrace. The next day, I checked out my properties. As a top actress, I had some real estate, even close to Frank's villa. It seemed I used to like being around him a lot. I immediately cleared out my belongings from the villa, threw away anything couples related, packed up the rest, and called a moving company to take it all back to my own villa. While packing, Daniel called, saying he needed to head back to City A. His grandma was sick. Thinking I had nothing better to do, I offered to go with him to check on her. Daniel's grandma was already in the hospital, diagnosed with mid-stage lung cancer. I grew up with my grandma, but I'd been busy these years and neglected her. Daniel looked particularly guilty. Without his insistence on annual checkups, they wouldn't have caught it in time or started treatments. His grandma wouldn't want to see him like that. He perked up, first taking me home. His family's calico cat dashed out, leaping into my arms, licking my hand with its little tongue. I found it adorable. Daniel told me it was the cat I once rescued, maybe it recognized me as its savior. He adopted it and has been caring for it for 8 years. I stayed with Daniel in City A for 2 months. But Grandma, being old, at 70, with her health declining, the cancer spread, reaching a terminal stage. Doctors said 2 months max, likely the end, and any treatment would only inflict more pain. Daniel thought long and hard, finally deciding to take Grandma home to care for her himself. Her final wish was to see Daniel married. I suggested we have a fake wedding to make her happy. He didn't want to pressure me with something like that. Putting on a wedding would attract media attention, affecting my future choices. I teased, "Oh, so you don't really want to marry me? Dating without marriage is just fooling around." He quickly denied, repeatedly assuring he was sincere, that if I'd marry him, he'd be over the moon and even swore to it. Wasn't that something? I didn't mind. A fake wedding to fulfill an elderly woman's last wish was nothing. He couldn't hide the sadness on his face. You might regret the wedding once you remember. With Grandma's illness, his mood was somber throughout. I hugged him, gazing up, "So unsure of yourself? You're so handsome, how could I regret? Because you don't know how much you loved Frank before." He trailed off, looking even downcast. These past 2 months, being with him deepened our bond. Seeing him like that tugged at my heart, prompting me to cup his face, standing on my tiptoes to kiss him. I promised, even if I remember, I'll love only you, okay? Don't be sad. He finally cheered up, holding me tight for a kiss. "Even if you're lying now, I'm happy." I'll go arrange what's needed for the wedding. The press had already covered our frequent hospital visits. With rumors of a wedding, gossip spun wildly, claiming he accompanied me to the OB/GYN, and that we were having a shotgun wedding. For the wedding, we opted for simplicity, planning to hold it at a chapel, inviting no one, just to grant Grandma's wish. Grandma was frail, barely able to get out of bed. Our plan was to video call her once the ceremony began. Before the wedding even started, Frank barged in. His usual pristine appearance was disheveled, under eye shadows pronounced. Compared to 2 months ago, he was thinner, his face unusually pale. Seeing me in a wedding dress, his eyes reddened, wearing a look of despair and disbelief I hadn't seen before. He shakily asked, "Adeline, what are you doing?" I replied, "Brother, are you here for my wedding?" His whole aura radiated sadness. Painfully, he closed his eyes. "Don't call me brother. I'm not your brother. Adeline, you're mine, you can't marry someone else." What a joke. With a mocking smile, my tone haughty like his used to be, "You were the one who insisted you were my brother. Now, this heartbreak act, who are you fooling? That time, I thought your amnesia was faked, that's why. Just eager to shake me off and be with Linda, huh?" His face turned ashen, lost for words, silent for a long time. "You've lost your memory now. If you remember, we could get back together. This time, we'll do it right. Even if you want marriage, I'll agree. You've got some nerve, talking about marrying my wife at our wedding. Do you think I'm dead?" Daniel couldn't stand it anymore. He grabbed my waist, looking jealous as hell, like a little wolf dog ready to bite. Frank's eyes were bloodshot, almost bursting with anger. "Shut up. Who steals their best friend's wife like this? Don't make it sound so bad. I made sure y'all broke up that day before making my move. If you didn't cherish what you had, don't act like a mad dog after losing it." He didn't mention Frank called me a tramp, out of some consideration for me. At the time, I thought I could be okay, but I realized I couldn't do without Adeline. These past 2 months, I've been like the walking dead. "Adeline, come with me. I'll take you to familiar places, and you'll regain your memory. Once you remember how much you loved me, everything will be fine." He was desperate to help me regain my memory, of being the Adeline who loved him to the bone, who wouldn't leave no matter how he treated me. Too bad, though. She's really gone. Died in that earthquake. Died in you choosing Linda again and again. Died while you kept stabbing me with hurt, leaving me alone to lick my wounds, not seeing how broken-hearted I was. I pushed his hand off coldly, calmly telling him, "I've got my memory back, but I don't want to go with you." For the past 2 months, my mind's been flooded with old memories. Finally, when he barged in just now, everything came back to me. I had a crush on Frank since high school. My family, parents divorced, went their separate ways, gave me child support, rarely visited. I grew up with my grandma. We used to live close to Frank's place. On my birthday once, after buying a cake, I ran into some guys. Not only did they ruin my cake, but they were also drunk and got handsy. It was Frank who stepped in. He said if they wouldn't leave, he'd call the cops. Before leaving, he shoved the cake he was carrying into my hands. I hate sweets, here you go. That young, handsome face, carefree attitude, school uniform, and the night's lamplight, every single thing made my heart skip. Later, even after graduation, I never ran into him again, even though I learned Taekwondo and took that path countless times. After college, I entered showbiz, playing extras. When I met him again, it was at a party my agent took me to. He clearly didn't remember me, was drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Heard from others he had broken up with his first love. She dumped him to go on a national tour. At the party, some old guy held my hand, hinting at offering me resources if I went with him. I wasn't into it, and he tried to get me drunk. Frank stopped it, pulling me to his side with a smile. "You wouldn't mind me taking her, right?" The guy was all like, "Of course not." That night, Frank was wasted, and I took him home, and he vomited all over me. Next day, He looked at us, thinking something happened. Gave me a dirty look, thought I was some social climber. Wrote me a check. Is this enough? I told him nothing happened and stormed off his villa. Later, we ran into each other again. He apologized for that, and I forgave him. After more encounters at parties, he got my feelings. He asked me to be his girlfriend to deal with issues, accompany him to events. Said I must be obedient, don't ask questions, don't expect things. I faithfully played his girlfriend for 7 years, just waiting for him to commit fully. Even if he didn't show much love, I was content. Until Linda came along. She made me realize love isn't about how long you wait or compromise, it's not equal love. Losing myself for 7 years loving one person, remembering its agony. So, I figured it out. He doesn't love me. I won't love him either. Luckily, I'm done feeling anything for him. No more pain in the future. Frank loosened his collar button, took a deep breath, scanning the church darkly. Not leaving? Wreck this wedding. Wreck it all. His crew started ripping church decor and smashing statues, leaving the priest under the table, trembling and muttering prayers. I went up and slapped him across the face. Have you lost your mind? Acting crazy like this? We won't even make it to Grandma's video call. Thank God she's not here or she'd be furious. Frank turned his head back, bearing my handprint on his cheek, tears in his eyes. You hit me. For him. You love him that much? How long have y'all been together? I mean, we've had 7 years, Adeline. Go ahead, get back at me. Just not like this. He was crouched in pain on the floor, clutching his stomach. Hurts like hell, stomachache can't be worse than heartache, right? What did you do to me? Otherwise, why am I in so much pain? I looked down at him coldly. So what if you wreck this church? I can have another wedding. I'm not wasting my life getting back at you. Didn't you love Linda? Wasn't it only 1 year y'all spent together? Time isn't the issue. Nothing happened with Linda. Thought I hadn't forgotten her. But with her hanging around lately, I've got no interest. I was just bitter about being dumped back then. Removed her from the crew. 7 years, unknowingly, I fell for you instead. Don't marry him. I'll do whatever you want. Love me? Then why was your instinct during the earthquake to save her? Just 'cause I dumped you, and you're not over that. If I turned back, wouldn't I just end up like her, dumped and left behind? Reflect on your attitude toward me these years. If not for my thick rose-colored glasses, I would have broken up ages ago. That love got eroded by your attitude over 7 years. Now, I'm asking, let me go. Don't look for me anymore. He wanted to explain when Daniel stormed in with security. Take all these troublemakers to the police station, he ordered. Daniel had just called reinforcements. He shot a fierce look at Frank. If Frank hadn't looked so weak, half crouched on the floor, Daniel might have kicked him. As for Frank, you're welcome to stay and watch the wedding, but make sure he doesn't cause any trouble. Tape his mouth shut if need be. The wedding venue quickly moved to another church. Once it started, we connected Grandma via video. Under the priest's witness, we completed the ceremony. Frank was restrained and forced to watch, clenched fists and a gray, pale face. The shock made him faint. After being taken to the hospital, the doctors said his stomach had reacted badly, and his intense emotions caused him to pass out. This might haunt him forever. To see the woman he'd loved for 7 years marry someone else just as he realized his feelings. After regaining my memory, I spent 2 months with Daniel caring for Grandma. She passed, and I stayed to help with the funeral. In those days, Frank tried every way to see me, but Daniel always stopped him. The production team came back, offering me a lead role, which I accepted. I loved the character, she was always meant to be mine. As for Linda, I heard her husband from abroad showed up, they had never truly divorced. She sought Frank's help, but he ignored her, and eventually, her husband forcibly took her back overseas. As for Frank, he pestered me for 2 years, refusing to let go. Only when I announced my marriage and pregnancy on social media did he finally give up. The next I heard, he was in the mid-stages of stomach cancer. His assistant reached out, asking if I would visit him in the hospital. Daniel noticed I was torn. "I'll go with you." "He's terribly sick." "I'm not that petty," he said, albeit reluctantly. At the hospital, Daniel waited outside the room as I went in. Frank lay lifeless on the bed, pale as a sheet, forcing a small smile when he saw me. "I thought you wouldn't come." I looked at him calmly. "I've moved on. I see no harm in visiting. I just want to know, if I had treated you better, would we have gotten married? Had kids? It doesn't matter. Things happened." He was so proud, even with a second chance, he'd never change. I don't make hypothetical scenarios, only consider the now. This was our last meeting. Daniel didn't say it, but I didn't want him to feel bad or uneasy. "So from now on, whatever happens, let's not contact each other again." He gasped for air, like he was suffocating, taking deep breaths. "I'm going to country for treatment. I probably won't be back. I'll never bother you again." I just hadn't apologized in person. "Then let's not meet again." Without looking back, I stood up and left. I couldn't say it didn't matter. The hurt was real, though he had brought me happiness once. For the rest of my life, I'd have nothing to do with him. The moment I got outside, Daniel approached quickly. 2 more minutes and I'd have come in looking for you." Not pretending to be magnanimous anymore. "With you, I have to always keep watch. Since we're here, should we visit the obstetrics department to see the baby?" "Sure." "How wonderful. My future now includes a child and Daniel. I finally have a home I've longed for, a place that's truly mine."